please call the roll.
Mr. Knoll,
Here.
Ms. Atrach,
Here.
Ms. Weltman,
Here.
Mr. Daga.
Here.
Mr. Lemay.
Here.
Mr. Gentili.
Here.
Dr. Wong.
Here.
And I invite everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please forward.
Thank you. Our first agenda item this evening, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. Those of August 7th, August 16th, and the 23rd, since we had a special meeting in August to add to the typical 2. First, we would need a motion regarding August 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please, for the
Yes.
approval.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Atrach,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman. Yes. Mr. Daga.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
And next, a motion for the approval of the minutes of August 16th, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Atrach.
Yes.
Ms. Weltman. Yes. Mr. Daga.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
And finally, motion for the approval of August 23rd minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Ms. Atrach,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Or Mr. Daga.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yeah.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we
Blind spot.
Right.
we didn't publish it as an emergency, should we?
It doesn't matter what the agenda says, it matters what's on the ordinance, and it's not done as an emergency. No, you can suspend the rules.
I will suspend the rules. We have an ordinance authorizing a contract with the Board of Health. This is a contract council that reappears every 2 years. So we are here to engage the Board of Health again for that purpose. Mr. Brzezinski, could you take us through this a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Like the mayor said, this comes up every 2 years. Now, this is the second, 23 is the second year of the last contract. The new rates on an individual basis can be found on page 2 of 7. They combine for a total of $103,639. But in essence, since we're approving a 2-year contract, that's why we have the full amount listed in section 1. But for 2024, it's going to be $49,271, and for 25, it's going to be $54,368. I've already built those in because I'm working on, the next budget, so I've got those built in already.
What was the size of the increase over the last?
It was high 42,000 and change.
In 23, for
in
23?
I mean, it's going up probably close to 10%
Wow.
plus a year.
Do we know why?
Their cost of doing business. In the past, there were years in the old past that there was no increase.
I remember that. It was really
Right.
flat for years and years.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're probably trying to use true numbers now.
Yeah.
They may have gotten a little beaten up through their increased activity during the pandemic and not having those additional costs built into their contract.
Mhm.
So I could see that it's possible they're playing a little catch up in this contract round.
I mean, over a 10-year period, it's probably averaging 4%, 3.5%, 4%.
Yeah, but they're building in about 10% for the next year, though. I mean, 54. I don't
That's
know.
correct.
That's- yeah. Any pushback from, I don't know, have you talked to any other finance directors about?
I just had a brief conversation with one, and considering that none of us have our own health
I
department.
know. It's a monopoly. I'm sorry, go ahead. Kathy.
So what exactly are they doing with the money for our city? Can you just explain? I mean, I know they're keeping the health of our city, but like, what are we paying them to do? And is there somebody else we can outsource? Or do we have to?
Years ago, and I don't know if this is the same way now, but I will say early 90s, Lakewood had their own. City of Cleveland had their own.
Shaker Heights had their own until 3 years ago.
And I could tell you, even thinking back to the early 90s, it was $200,000+ a year for Lakewood. Now Lakewood's a much bigger community than we are, but it's the game in town unless you want to do it on your own.
But it's a whole county that is encompassing, right?
Correct.
So it's a lot of
So
funds that they're
do
getting.
they do every city in the county now, Joe? Is Cleveland still have its own?
I believe they do.
Okay, I think they're the last one in the county that has their own. I know Shaker was a long holdout for that, having their own, and they finally outsourced to the county, I thought 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, they
And
did.
it probably
Is
did,
that right?
probably based on the dollars.
Yeah, it was all dollar driven.
So I think specifically to Kathy's question, so what tasks do they do though? Like what services do we get? What is our benefit? Not just as a point of information, so we.
I mean,
It's a statutory item. The Ohio Revised Code provides that there shall be a health department. Cities have the authority to have their own health departments, and there's certain things that they do, and you saw some of them during the pandemic in terms of
Sure.
making decisions. They also do inspections of restaurants,
Well,
things of
that's
that
what I was
nature.
just
Yeah.
curious,
Right,
right.
what they
And-
do for us, just since we're voting on it.
They look at the septic systems, right? To
Are
make
they
sure
the
that
ones-
Yeah.
they're up
Yeah.
to
that's one of the things they
speed.
do.
They do that
They do the
testing?
taste of pepper, they come out and they do
Yeah.
the food vendor
They have a-
inspections.
Yeah, they have a concession food division. They have their, sanitary
Right.
division. I would not even want to hazard all the different things. John, our chief, do you know other things that Department of Health does?
No, you're on a good track. They do monitor all the septic systems and that discharge, effluent into the sewer systems, both, the septic itself or sewer itself and the groundwater. So they monitor all that too.
Do we pay them more for anything during our years? Do
No.
we pay them more? Do they do everything?
It comes out twice annually through our settlement sheets from the county taxes.
And they're currently enforcing all the people that haven't converted Gates Mills to sewer and things like that.
They're charged with that,
Okay.
but have they touched base with everybody? I wouldn't know that on an
Yeah, I
individual.
talked to them. I think they
basis.
said they were doing that right now. But how about like for the septics on other streets where we know that we probably won't have sewer in the next 10 years? Are they looking at anything like that, enforcing that?
John, I
Do
mean,
we
I know
know?
they
Yeah,
test and
they test neighborhoods, and they do about a 5-year cycle where they do inspections on people's individual systems. They do water sampling. They also respond. A lot of it's complaint driven. So if there's an odor issue or something like that, they'll come out and they'll investigate. They'll try to find the failing system or systems, and then they get into siting and replacement sometimes. There's sometimes a point of sale inspections they get involved with. They cover a lot of. You could spend that money just in what they do
What?
on the septic end. And they monitor, when there's
Yeah.
a mosquito outbreak, all
Right.
those kinds of things, rabies, all of those different sort of strange functions are all covered by this
Yeah.
this
No,
one.
they're great. They're always really good at responding to anything.
When I had a bat in my house, they were the ones who responded at
Oh.
7:30 in the morning to pick
Really?
up the bat I had catch.
Really? I didn't know that.
They're
That's
very
good to know.
efficient.
Yeah, no, they're great. They're really
They still call you Batman.
good.
So you live in the bat cave? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Some of this is personal. I don't want to get into it all. We can go into executive session if we have.
We lived that in our house. We had to call the city.
Anything else? All right, could we have a motion to suspend?
So moved. Second.
Roll call on that.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And a motion to adopt 2023-09.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to Resolution 2023-10. This is for the acceptance of the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Always a very exciting item that we have. Joe, would you take us
Thanks,
through this?
Mayor. Annual resolution that we have, these rates are our rates. It comes in a form to Sheila and I. We put it in resolution form. This allows us to start receiving the first half and second half taxes for next year.
It's a good thing. We should
The rates
adopt
haven't
this.
changed. It's a good thing.
Yes.
I have a quick question. Since we have a surplus of almost like $15 million,
I'm
and I
sorry.
know we
Could
need
you
a,
speak up? I'm
Oh.
having a hard time.
we have a surplus of like $15 million right now,
Yes.
which we always need for a rainy day and things like that. Has a city or the city considered lowering some taxes to, or is that just unheard of?
I'll let Joe address that. It's not unheard of. The cities that have done that usually, and Tony is familiar with this also,
Regret it?
there's usually a bad place at the end of that adventure because what you want to have is in my view, a tax that is reasonable to keep the city operational and fiscally healthy. Our 1% tax with a half credit is perhaps the lowest in Cuyahoga County. I think there's not one or two other communities that have that tax rate, I believe, but it's the lowest.
But this.
There are some communities, there are some communities, once it's gone, it's extremely difficult as an organization to get it back when you don't need it. So if you just ride the circumstances of that moment, when the next moment happens, you may be not with the adequate funds. So it's best to just, have something that is reasonable
So I was
and
like, I don't know.
we have very low rates. It's not a detriment to, I think, attracting people to the city because they are very, very competitive compared to other communities. It's a big reason. It's a large reason many high wealth earners do come to this community because we have a very low income tax rate.
And to the mayor's point, he's referring to income tax.
This is property
This is
tax.
specifically property tax.
Sorry.
And as far as property tax, the residents pay what they pay for their property tax. We receive roughly 10% of what the residents pay. So it's about $1.9 million
Right.
roughly on an annual basis. That's general fund. We have other funds, as you can see here, that receive it. But most of the property tax, as everybody, at least in here knows, because we're involved with government, most of it goes to your school district.
Mhm.
And roughly another 10-12% goes to the county to fund RETA and their administration services and stuff like that. Ours funds the general fund for daily operation, our bond retirement fund for the debt that we have outstanding. Police and fire get 0.3 mils for the pension.
Joe, I don't think the county funds RETA.
Not Rita. I mean,
RTA is that.
RTA.
RTA, yeah, RTA,
I
yes,
had the R right.
not RETA.
You had a T in there too.
RTA, that's how it gets
Right.
funded.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the library,
Libraries.
parks.
But I will say to your point, Kathy, that at some point, if we're continue to be prudent and successful and our capital projects are funded, I would revisit that issue.
It's always something that should be on at least a point of discussion. We don't want to take in way more money than we need. And just as a point of information, things can change. The schools are virtually completely paid for by local money. They get
Correct.
virtually no money from the state. And so therefore, the needs of some of another entity like the schools could increase, for example, or any of these other entities. So the burden on our taxpayers is still significant wherever it goes.
Okay. Well, tonight we're dealing with the resolution 2023-10. So can we have a motion for its adoption?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrach?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, looking at a motion authorizing the service director to purchase a 2023 Timco sweeper catch basin combo vehicle in the amount of $335,000. Jim, why don't you at least introduce, and I want to flip it to Joe for after your comments.
As I sent in the memo, I hope you all read, our current vehicle, which is a 2012 combination vehicle, is in need of serious repairs, which is making it inoperable at this time. Immediately to get it running, it would be $40,000, and then it needs a new steel box or new box on the back end, needs to be replaced because of rust. These vehicles are under never dry conditions. The boxes rust out. They're not stainless. They don't make a stainless replacement. I spoke to Joe about this, and we felt that $155,000 worth of repairs on a machine that's 11 years old was probably not the best way to go. So we did do some investigation on replacements. We called our contractor or our dealer that supplies these vehicles, and one vehicle to the exact same as ours in stainless, because they do make them in stainless now, would be $483,000. We thought that was, and it's not available until the first quarter of 2025. We thought that, asked if there was another avenue, which they suggested these other models that they've had some good luck with. I asked if there's anybody in the neighborhood that uses them. So I called the state of Ohio, because they said that the state has these vehicles. So the two districts around us, there you have about 5 of them dating back to about 8 years. So they do have some history with these things. And so we did do a demo on one. It would fit our needs. And they also, since they are a dealer, they would give us a trade-in, and they gave us a trade-in value of $20,000. Could be used towards either machine. These are all stainless, so they would not run into the same problems that we're currently experiencing.
So Timco is stainless as well?
Timco is completely 100% stainless.
Yeah.
So we were trying to make sure that we were getting something where we can get longer lifespan.
These are fairly critical vehicles in our department.
Yeah,
They're what keep our catch basins clear, stormwater flowing, homes, streets not flooding. This is an important, we're at a real disadvantage with this machine being out of service.
Is there any difference in training for the people who have to operate it?
Actually, the new machine is a little less complicated because it's done with a different air system. That it's more of a vacuum. It's like a blower instead of a vacuum, where and so it's actually a little more simplistic of a machine. And our operators are familiar with it. They went right in, and they would also give us complete training for all of our crews, so plus mechanicals.
So in our email correspondence, you let me know that this was budgeted for 2027.
Yeah, we forecasted one of these for 2027 due to the age that it would be, but we've been kind of battling this rust problem for maybe 2 years on the box, and it's finally hit to a part that makes the machine inoperable.
Is there anything that we can defer out to 2027 to balance the 5-year budget out?
I'll leave that,
I
I'll leave that
agree.
question to Joe since he's the finance.
Tony, similar that we obviously weren't expecting $155,000 in repair costs for this year. We've got a budget in 2027. What we will end up doing for the 5-year plan is taking that out, and that's a good chunk of what service was looking for in 2027. We're basically gonna bring it forward. Next week, I've got an appropriation ordinance that's gonna do some cleanup in various areas. I'm gonna basically in that ordinance request that we transfer an additional $335,000 to the capital projects fund to do it now.
Well, I understand that, but is there anything that is in the service capital budget that
No.
would have been for 2023, 24, 25, 26 that can be pushed to 2027? I think that's a Jim question, not a Joe question. Because
Well, and in all,
Is there, in other words, is there another discretionary purchase to even this out that? you
No,
can do?
because
I didn't think so, but I'm just
over the
asking.
last
Yeah.
several years, we bought most of the big ticket items in the service department.
Yeah.
Part of it was last year, part of it was this year, was the last pieces of the Packer.
Yeah,
And now the budget, at least for 24, 25, 26, were pretty low because there weren't the big 5-ton trucks, Packers.
Yeah.
In 27, it jumped up because of the budget for the backhaul or the street sweeper, catch basin cleaner. So we really have just a bunch of smaller stuff,
Yeah.
pickups, et cetera, Kubotas for the solid waste department. So really no big ticket items that could be shifted.
but
We don't-
respectfully, I will say our budgeted amount for this equipment, even out 2027, was $270,000. Our, regardless of which model we go with, if we choose the VACL or the Tyco, like what Jim is recommending, that's still a significant amount under budget or over budget. I didn't mean to misspeak. So I'm wondering if we are being too conservative in our budgetary amounts for this. Like as we're seeing costs go up and significant costs for pieces of equipment, do we need to really kind of relook at our 5-year forecast where things are and what we're budgeting? Like is there more there? Because we've only seen costs go up on almost every purchase that we've made. So this seemed very significant to me. I don't know how the rest of the council
Yeah,
feels
no,
about that.
I agree with that. It's 30% over budget, and that was in 2027 dollars. So you would think, you would expect more of an increase. And my concern is exactly the same thing. How good are our projections? I know we always can shift money and then the budget lines up perfectly and it all looks perfect. But I'm curious what our projected budget was to actual. And maybe that's something, not just as to this, but as to other items. I would want to know how on target are we to where we plan to be. I mean, this is 30% approximately over. And again, that we were projecting $2027. And to the point that, there aren't a lot of things on the horizon. The concern was this wasn't on the horizon this year. This wasn't planned. So therefore, another one of our vehicles that maybe was projected to last 3 or 4 more years could come down. I'm just really, this actual purchase I think is important and I have no problem with it, even though it is over budget and expensive. It's very important. I'm more concerned with the planning process and understanding the budgetary variance. I guess, the real variance from what we thought we were going to do to where we ended up. So,
Yeah.
and not just for this project.
Jim, can I ask a question related to that? When we originally budgeted for that, were they making stainless steel bodies at that time?
When we actually added this, we did not have a direct quote for a stainless steel body. I based it basically on when we purchased our last one, I believe it was 200.
But this isn't the standard.
227,000, and that was a steel thing. Stainless steel has gone way up, so would reflect a lot of that. So to say, was stainless available? I believe so, but it was not considered. It was not put in just because it was so far out, we had room to adjust. You know, it literally was the very first time we put it in the 5-year proposal.
Listen, I think your point is well taken. And that is always, and I don't think anyone here would disagree. I think it's always important to not only project, but as we go forward and that those projections roll forward, that we reevaluate, you know, the validity of the assumptions being made in those projections. Absolutely no debate about this. And I appreciate your concern about that issue. And that is something that that will occur. And it's important.
Yeah, I just think if it's a reoccurring theme, we need to examine it a little bit closer. And of course, I want our service department to be well armed with the tools that they need to do the great job that they already do. Just out of curiosity, how many hours were on the 2012? Like, how often do you guys run that? Like, how often is this equipment used? What's
Generally, when we sweep the city 3 or 4 times a year, usually generally first in the spring, summertime, you know, twice, and once right after all the leaves are down. So we try to clean up some of the leaves that get in the streets. So that process, you know, it takes maybe two weeks to do the whole city throughout. So, you know, that's 8 weeks for sweeping. And then we do a lot of catch basin cleaning. We may go and it may be out for 2 weeks straight and then sit for a month and go back out again, or it may go out catch basin cleaning. When it's done that, then they're out sweeping again. So it's kind of on the road a lot. I wouldn't say it's doesn't sit for a long time. So
when was the last time it was
Mayor.
used then? Like, how long has it been?
it's been down since May.
Since May, okay.
And it's taken us a long time to get estimates for repairs and to get, then when we started talking about replacement, we tried to get those estimates before we brought the whole package out.
And would it be our mechanic that does it with the parts that you order, or?
Yes.
And granted, I know
this-
that we're really not looking at repairing this,
this
but
one
what's
would
that
be-
process?
This one, when we buy a new one, obviously it'll be under warranty for at least 2 years. But other than that, we try to do as much in-house as possible.
Mayor, I'd like to just make 3 points. First, I'm very glad that this is going to be stainless because I think it'll extend the life of our of the piece of equipment. It'll last more than 12 years, I'm sure. Number 2 is that I think in the 11 years, 12 years that I've been on council, this is the first time we've had to do this.
Yes.
Where we didn't, have other dollars that we could shift. So I'm comfortable with this is an extreme need, and I'm willing to spend the extra dollars for the stainless. And the third thing is that I would like to have, when we do the budget process, I would like to see if we could have an inventory list of all of these types of pieces of equipment, the years, the mileage, all of the
We
salient
have that data.
factors, so that we can see that, so we can make better judgments about going forward. And maybe we would have questioned 2027 and said, should this have been
Right.
ahead of that?
One thing we've accomplished over the last few years is we have greatly improved our historic information about any particular vehicle regarding its repair histories, things, all the things related to that vehicle. So yes, that information.
All that would be great
is
information to have at the time we go through the budget.
And this point, and you're right, this is an extraordinary event. And
I think the first
that
time in
is
10
one
years.
of it relates back, I don't want to go back to a topic that we left, but this goes back to why you don't always know what you don't know. So we make sure that we have the money when we need the money. That's part of why people may say, oh, look at all the money the city's sitting on. Why aren't you just using it for this or that? Well, part of the reason, a major part of the reason is, we're cautious and
Stuff happens.
we're cautious. Stuff happens. That's a different S word, but yes, stuff happens.
Question, Mayor. How do we know that this is the best price? Did we bid it? Did
This-
we, is this
This
government
this again
negotiated
comes
price?
under Sourcewell.
Okay.
And since the state is using it, I'm sure that that unit is, since the state of Ohio would be under state bid. I
Is
mean,
that something you want to confirm?
they
before
use the
we
cheap,
proceed?
the supplier would use the cheapest avenue available. So if it's either Sourcewell or the state contract, which they're generally the same,
Is that something we need to confirm or you're pretty sure of it?
I'm 99.9% sure of it.
Okay.
Can't never be 100%.
So just to get back to the budgeting, I don't know if Sourcewell would be a resource, but it seems like one of the challenges was that our flow chart of the items is there. The timing can vary because things happen, but the cost of some of those items was not up to date. I don't know if there's a way we could kind of annually or biannually repopulate that so that, and I don't know if there's a way to get that information so somebody doesn't have to dig around too much, like via Sourcewell or somewhere, just to have a closer estimate on those numbers.
I would say that due to Sourcewell doing yearly adjustments, that, you're never going to get a price out more than a year. And I constantly try to get as much information before we throw anything in the budget or in a proposed capital improvements on vehicles. We've been historically pretty close, but we do run into raises in steel rates. Some of the contractors, suppliers that tell us for this stuff, they give somebody a price and they used to give them 6 months. Now they're giving them 2 weeks, which is very difficult for cities because of the process that we have to go through to do this stuff.
Yeah, if we can just even have this year's prices, because it seems like it's
Yeah.
such a big variance, but that, you're right, you couldn't, no one's going to give you a price.
Yeah, last year we bought a pickup truck. What it did was we had to adjust all the pickup trucks down the line that were coming up.
Which is
I
good,
mean, that was like $10,000 a vehicle.
but it's real.
Because
It's
we
realistic.
knew what that one was gonna do. It's not going down, so we popped them up a little bit, so. But that covers next year's vehicles too, so.
This will be housed in the new service garage.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The current one
Was
is-
the previous one?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Always
It's-
undercover or was it out?
Yes, always. But
Okay.
it's the insides that, it's, if you use water, the water never dries. And the stuff that comes in is like a sandblaster, and then a big rock will come in and hit a rusted spot, and that's,
And salt.
and salt and everything else that we pick up along the way, so.
It's not a delicate process,
No,
the
it's not.
operations machine.
It's a very necessary machine. We had a question last week about it from a resident, so she posed that to me. That's why I didn't really go too elaborate into that whole discussion, because I knew we'd be discussing it here, so.
Kathy?
Just a quick question. What have we been doing since May, since we haven't had it? And I know we probably don't want to share with another city, but we're a smaller city, so if we only use it for 2 weeks out of a month or something, could we work with another city to
We have
potentially?
contracted with Orange
Uh-huh.
before, and Woodmere, where we've swept their streets for them.
Uh-huh.
And they, I believe, paid us back one way or another. Usually it's, Woodmere wasn't that big. It's basically go down Brainerd, turn around and come back.
Uh-huh.
But Orange, we swept their whole city. That was when Bob was still the director, so I don't know exactly what the compensation was on that, but we share equipment a lot with other cities. Them using our equipment and us using theirs.
So are
So-
we, what are we doing now since it's been out?
We have not been out,
Not been out?
and that's kind of why it really needs to, we need to get
Well, with
busy
this
because
approval-
winter's coming.
With this approval, we'll have it
Yeah, this,
within the next week or
right,
so.
this is immediately available.
Before the seasons change,
Yeah, yeah.
we
no.
really want to
Right.
get our catch basins sucked out.
One other thing, we always try to go through gov deals to try to get the best pricing. But in the current condition of the vehicle, not running at all, I find that we probably would just be wasting our time. And I think the $20,000
Okay.
trade-in value is, so I know we always try to do gov deals to make extra money, but in this case, it's just not, probably not the best way to go.
Is council prepared to move on this motion tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so if someone could make the motion for
Then
authorizing this purchase?
So moved.
Second,
we don't have to suspend.
That's a motion, so we don't have
Okay,
to suspend. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
All right, next, we're looking for a motion to authorize some storm sewer repairs for an amount of $44,000. Don, could you take us through this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. You know, we did our videotaping in South Woodland, and we did find areas, a handful of areas that needed attention with some broken pipe and things like that. So we got some competitive prices, and we'd like to recommend Neroni and Sons to get this work done.
Are these older pipes or these newer pipes?
They're old pipes, yeah.
They're old, so-
They're about 100 years old, 95 years old, most of them, yeah. So, depends what your definition of old is.
All right.
Okay. Motion?
So
Okay.
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Zatra?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Mr. Daga?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. The next, we have committees and department heads. I will, I guess, be reporting on planning and zoning this evening. Ms. Weltman was out of town, I believe, that day. We had two items for planning and zoning, two returning items. One dealt with a application for a conditional use permit to install a defensive wall within the creek to help deflect water and reduce the erosion that the creek was experiencing. This had been before planning before. There had been a request for additional information so that the planning commission could get more familiar and comfortable if the data supported it regarding whether there would be negative downstream effects by the installation of this wall. That information was provided to Don. Don reviewed the calculations and made some recommendations regarding adding some additional rock at the tail end of this wall installation so that the rock would deaccelerate the water that was coming off the wall even more so than what the contractor had already proposed. And that will be on the next week's council agenda for the council to review and approve the request for a conditional use permit. It's not on this week because the applicant was out of town this week, so couldn't come here this week. So we scheduled it to come up next week. Next, we also discussed an application by the Cleveland Racquet Club for preliminary site plan approval, which was approved. They will be going back to planning and zoning for final site plan approval after they have finished their design and engineering. And that's what happened at planning and zoning. I don't believe we have any other committees to report at this point. I lost my agenda. Here it is. Department heads. Why don't we just start with Don, since he probably has the most.
Quick updates on a few things. Shaker Boulevard, they've finished all of the underground sewer work, both storm and sanitary is done. They are doing restoration work, fixing driveways, putting mailboxes back, all that kind of planting grass, all that stuff. So that's going to be happening over the next week or so, week to 2 weeks. And right behind them, we have our paving contractor is going to start with milling off paving and putting a new road down.
And that, the road though will be open
When
during the
paving,
paving.
during the paving, it'll be open. They'll have a work zone as they're working with flaggers, but it'll be open in the evenings. It'll
Do
be
we know when that is? Because I know they're still doing a lot of work as of today.
Yes, yeah, they're pushing hard to get it totally done. The current contractor with all of their cleanup work and everything by the end of next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we're up to like 10 months on this project. You know, it started in the end of November.
Right.
And
Well, and they got delayed for probably almost 2 months waiting for the utility companies to get everything out of the way too.
I know, it's just, you know, for the
It's
people who
frustrating.
live on that segment of Shaker, I mean, it's a little easier for me because I'm at Pepper Creek, I can go the long way.
Right.
Which is all but it's really been a very challenging experience. It's, you
Yeah.
know, and really a long,
This has been a very long project.
very long
It was
project.
supposed to have been, as we've announced a month ago when we were together, we had hoped that this thing, the projection of the contractor this would be done Labor Day-ish, a week after Labor Day, and here we are approaching the end of September.
Yeah,
As they were digging this final section, they encountered some mystery pipes that the unexpected that may have contained fiber optic cable, which is, you can't cut those pipes. You have to understand what it is. So they had to then get the utility working with them as to identify what's in this cable pipe before we go whacking at it. And that caused additional delays. So
and I know.
it's
I
a
mean,
work in progress. I understand it.
everything's in the wrong place. I know. I mean, I know there was pipe in the middle of not in the middle of the road, in a random place in the road.
Yeah.
And so I know it's a challenge. I just think that, you know, for future projects, we should be really aware that the infrastructure is working at best, and we're dealing with all the utilities who are unpredictable. I'm trying to use diplomatic words because I really think it's been a bad experience for the people who
Right.
live there.
And-
I don't know how else to say
you're,
it.
You're right. We're always aware of it. We were aware of the quirkiness and the challenges of the utilities. I remember there were conversations at the beginning of this project about the challenges that a lot depended on the utilities doing their role to move things. And they did not disappoint so far as not moving things.
Yeah, even something as basic as asking them, like Dominion, East Ohio Gas, will you mark where the gas line is prior to construction? The answer is no. We'll give you our records and we'll stick to those records. So you go ahead and design it based on the record information. Then as the contractor mobilizes and starts, they'll come out and flag the location, which sometimes might be off by 10 feet. So now maybe you've designed it in the wrong place or you need to move it. And then all of those challenges kind of feed on themselves. So if you move one, and then sometimes they mark it, and when you dig down, it's still in the wrong place.
Mhm.
Everybody's ready to go, and
I've watched it.
Yeah.
I've watched
So
it like in real time.
It is frustrating, and it's a Shaker has a lot of utilities on it.
Uh-huh.
It's just one of those utility corridors. It's an old street, and it has a lot of stuff buried, and it's been tough. It's been a tough.
Yeah, I just think we should, be aware of it and be aware of what the neighbors have gone through and are still going through.
Still going through.
It's been brutal on them. It's been absolutely
It's
brutal.
been brutal, and like I said, they actually started setting up for this prior to last Thanksgiving. I
Yeah.
remember, and I think they started digging right after.
Yeah.
So
Don, you probably don't want to answer this question. But what is your prediction on how long the paving phase of this is gonna take?
Paving's about a month.
About a month?
Yeah. So that's a much more predictable. They did South Woodland. I think they were pretty much right on the schedule, and they knocked it out.
They did a
So
great job on South Woodland, and it wasn't delayed at all.
a few weeks of discomfort, but it was done. Not even that much. So
Yeah, wasn't that
not too
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Part of doing infrastructure repairs, be it streets, pipes, whatever, in a city is we call upon our residents to live in a construction zone from time to time because there's no other way of doing it. So
And when they did South Woodland, that affected the detour on Shaker. So
Right.
if you tried to go on South Woodland, for about a week there, you would have to turn around if you didn't want to wait and go all the way to Fairmount or Somme to come back around to Shaker. And it was a lot.
Unfortunate that those ended up overlapping. They shouldn't have, but
Yeah, well, this one went so long.
What else you have, Don?
Okay, just still working with ODNR we have not actually gotten our final contract from them, which they go through their process, and when they send that to us, we'll have, this is for the Gates Mills.
It's approved, but we have not
It's
received.
approved, we
paperwork.
haven't received it yet, so we're just waiting for that. We've also started, you may have noticed, some survey equipment and things, gathering existing conditions information, which we're putting together, preliminary utility information and all the stuff that's out on the median tree inventory. That work is starting now because that's sort of our upfront work. We're also working to get, based on how that information comes out, we're going to put together some packages for landscape architects to give us prices on some of the trailhead stuff that we've talked about and some wayfinding signs and those things so that we get even quotes. We want to give them a good package to start off with.
Would it be possible to get that on the agenda maybe next week, just so we could go through it's such a big project and it's such an important project and we're getting a lot of money for it, although I know that it's still a significant expense, that we could just sort of see in some format what our timeline is, like when I wrote down, like planning details, costs, aesthetics, then the project management piece, like the costs out of pocket from the city, that part, and then the part about the design plan. I mean, could we, nothing long, but just so we have an idea of where we are, when we think that this project would start and finish. And I don't know if we even want to talk about the second part of it or just do this first.
Well, it's always good to start with actually having the timeline from ODNR because the grant has a time stamp to it. So once we actually have that start date, then we can fill in the rest of the calendar. Some of it is construction based, oh, great, we're going to start construction in November. No, we won't. It's going to have to wait till the following spring if that's the case. But it really has to be based on what their numbers are. So it's not just like, oh, we'll take the schedule and if they're a month, it takes them another month, we'll just move the whole schedule a month. Some of the things won't be moved a month. They might have to get moved more than that.
So
Don, I'm kind of confused. So their numbers being just the money that the funds that we're receiving, or are they holding our hand through this project?
They are providing money, but as the entity that's providing money, they also have some review and approval authority on the plans.
Gotcha. So we
And the
can check.
funding actually has a timeline. So, let's say that there's you have to spend the money within 2 years of receiving it.
Okay.
So there's that timeline. But that has to get factored into when is the start date for that. And then we look at the timing on, when is the constructability going to occur? When is the project best built?
But if
There remains the aspiration that this will be built next year.
That was my next question is with delays of funding, is that going to push back our potential dates then for this? Are we still looking at 2024 as a goal?
The goal would be 2024. We're also, once we have this document in place from ODNR, we also want to use that as a discussion with the Cuyahoga County to get the paving of the roadway on Gates Mills Boulevard, get assistance financially with that. So we need the one piece in place, in hand, to use that as leverage to get the other funding.
And please understand, my pressure to you is enthusiasm driven. It is not, that's my whole kind of push behind this is like, where are we at? Because yay.
So just to Melanie's point though about information, this is a big project and it's a big aesthetic project. So having us involved at some stage about here's a early conceptual design would be great, so we understood what was going on. So
Right.
leave that to you when that's appropriate.
Yeah, and again, we're doing, I think, the work that we can do right now, which is the existing conditions, inventorying trees and things like that, that let us come up with those preliminary plans. But I don't want to get too far down the road on the design without actually having the funding in place from ODNR.
And do they have historically, granting of approval of the grant, funds are usually released on a certain calendar.
It's tough to put a timeline with ODNR. It used to be very
It's not a cycle.
timely. I think since COVID or before COVID, I think they have some staffing issues and things like that. They just don't have the people to process things through as quickly as they would like, and we're a little bit at their mercy on that.
Because the other piece of it is, going back to the budget piece, that it's a significant, although we're getting a really wonderful grant, there's a significant expenditure to the city and to the taxpayers of this community. And it'd be nice to be able to plan for that and, and not just as to the path, but as to the other pieces, parts where we're contributing, if it has to do with any paving, any trees, any, I don't know, sewer work or other things that happen to come along with as we're working on this. So it would be really wonderful to be able to see those numbers. I know we're getting, closer and closer to the end of the year. And that's why I thought it'd be a great agenda item to pop on there, just to sort of have a list, I guess, a loose list, not to get into detail, but just to understand our expectations of what comes first, second, third, and what elements beyond the path are. So I knew that paving would be included, but I wasn't sure if that's for all of Gates Mills,
The
beyond.
section from Lander to Cedar's done. It's already paved.
Oh, that's right.
It's already
Okay.
paved.
From when they did
So,
that.
there's some nuance to it, and it's not clear how that's gonna work. It could be a lot of different ways. That's a conversation I want to have with the county. And until I have that conversation in detail, I don't want to speculate as to how it's gonna play out.
Okay.
But since we're doing the survey work right now, like if we look at all the utilities and everything, since the city's paying like more than half of the funds, we could start doing that and maybe have like a tentative plan of the path through Gates Mills median, maybe by October? Like not this next meeting, but maybe.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
we are working on
Okay.
that. We have people working on it right now. So
That would be great. And just so I have it in my head, because I'm unfamiliar with doing a project like this, whatever other pieces, like, so we'll be doing the paving from this point to this point. We might be doing these 3 other things, all encompassed in the larger project. It'll be just kind of nice to understand what we're doing on this major part of our city. And it's a major project, it's something that we've been talking about for years now.
Well, why don't we look at October as a potential time, at least, is for Don to evaluate as things roll out. And if we can get something,
Just a loose.
it's not really a
framework,
critical
not-
path, but
Right.
some, not timeline, but order a go and as to how this thing works. I think Don might be more comfortable with an order a go than a timeline.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be strict, just
understand.
a framework.
Yeah, and our field work and all that stuff happens now. And then, the design happens, over the next several months, and then cost estimates and all that stuff. And then we're in a position really to bid it next spring. In between that, you want to be able to look at it and make sure that you understand what this thing's going to look like. And I totally understand that. So that's important piece of it.
And that's a huge piece. And this just keeps it on the I don't know, in the forefront of everyone's mind, I guess, that we know we're doing this.
And Don, early in
Talking to-
December, we'll be talking about it again in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
Sure.
Speaking with, in a preliminary way with landscape architects and things that Don is accomplishing now, the survey work, the identification of plant material inventory that exists. All this became more and more apparent that to give us an appropriate chance of really evaluating any proposal, and they're coming up with the best proposal they can, they need that information.
And that's
So,
important, because the
so that's why
aesthetic
Don is engaged, in part in doing all this stuff.
the aesthetic is extremely important, I think,
Right.
not just to the people who live there, but to everyone.
Right, of course. Okay. Anything more, Mr. Sheehy?
I think that's it.
You're out of stuff?
I think so.
Jim, you've had a lot of talk. You have anything more?
First off, I'd like to thank the council for supporting the motion today for a sweeper. And the water leak underneath the 271 bridge on Schaefer has been repaired by Cleveland Water.
Oh, good.
So I know we've gotten a lot of comments on us, but actually that was in Beechwood, but we kind of stayed on Cleveland Water to get it repaired, and they did. So no more water in the road.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Great. Yes, Chief.
And I'd like to express our gratitude to the fire department. We had an extremely violent accident about a week and a half ago with 3 cars on the freeway. And they were amazing in helping us extract a seriously injured woman from a car. And it took them about 40 minutes to surgically cut around her and get her out of the vehicle without giving her additional injuries. And she still has a chance at recovery, even though she is seriously hurt. So my young guys were really impressed, and they brought it to my attention right away. And Chief Frazier had a team of experienced part-time officers from nearby cities, along with some of his younger officers as well, who worked together wonderfully. So I wanted to thank them for that.
Great, thank you. Chief, anything? Well, one thing that I want to bring up, since they're both too modest, is that, and I want to thank both our fire department and our police department received really lovely recognition on September 11th from, it was at Park Synagogue, but I think the recognition came out of Jewish Federation, I believe. And it was just a 9/11 recognition of, first responders and memory of, really what they do on a day-to-day basis that often gets lost in the routine of shuffle of life. That these men and women are always, every time they go out, prepared to do some remarkable things on everyone else's behalf. And I add my thanks and commendation to our chiefs and, more importantly, all of the wonderful people that you supervise and lead. So thank you. We have a third, the mailer, thankfully, finally went out. And regardless, we had some large attendance at our first 2 town halls. I don't know about council. I was pretty impressed with the turnouts. I thought it was very good. And I think in addition to the mailer, of course, we had sent this out to our 3,000 plus email subscribers. So it's, even without the posting, this had gone out to a lot of people. And now, well in advance of the 3rd and final town hall on September 26th at 7 p.m. at the Orange High School Commons. Anyone who didn't learn of it via other means, be it email, the signage that's displayed around the city, the very large electronic sign that is already up and displayed on Chagrin and Lander Circle. There's no reason, if you want to know about it or get more information, why it's up to anyone to show up. I think it's not on our agenda here, obviously, because we are having a big town hall about it. There's no need for it to be on this agenda. I do not intend to have it on the next agenda. The town hall is the appropriate place to have these further discussions. Then we're coming up on an election, and we'll see. That's the purpose of the referendum. And hopefully people will be there to get whatever information they feel they may lack regarding the proposal, so they can make an informed decision in November.
Mayor, while you're on that subject, I recorded video of the last meeting, and it's posted on the city's YouTube channel. So you can look at it from home if you wish. And it is now listed under the walkways. If you look on the website and go to the walkway discussion, if you look down at the bottom, there's the link to the video. So it gives, it's there for viewing whenever you want to see it.
Many of the comments are good. Some of them are a little out there on anyone's side, but I will forthrightly say I disagree with the lady who said Pepper Pike is not for children. I do not agree with that person. And I don't think anyone else in the room agreed with that person. But some of the others were more informative to hear both people's comments and their questions regarding the situation. Yes, Kathy?
Just a question. I think we had a great attendance at the town hall meetings. Do we know why it came just like late last week? Because when I was in Australia, I kept looking through my my email thing. I was like, oh, when's it coming? When's it coming? Because
Talking about the mailing?
yeah, because we finalized it before Labor Day,
It
but
was
then
a
it was
a
like
vendor
3
issue.
But then if we knew about that, could we have like switched to a different vendor? Because there's a lot of other printers out there. Even Staples does it. Or do we get a discount for them being so late with the mailer because they missed 2 town hall meetings?
No,
I mean,
there's
it's
not,
only-
there's not a discount for it, and you can't, it's one of those things where you can't change the horse in the middle of the river. This is not,
Yeah.
as long as it took council to get it finally approved, and that's why there was a series of emails saying,
But we,
let's get it, we need to get this done, we have to get this done.
we proved
That
it.
required them, for whatever amount of time, they
We proved
say,
it 2 weeks
to do it.
before.
I'm not the vendor.
So we got it to them then on the 31st, when we did the final.
They got
approval.
it
That
out
was
when-
Their proof got it.
Yeah.
In
Let's see that
retrospect,
day.
we should have used Emmy's calendar.
Yeah.
I like my calendar better,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah,
am
we-
glad that it did finally.
Yeah, it went
I
out.
got it in my
Yeah.
mailbox. this
And we
weekend,
had good,
so-
and we had very good attendance.
Yeah. We,
So I don't think I don't disagree that it was disappointing it
Yeah.
didn't go out like
can we
more
ask for a
promptly.
10%?
But I don't
discount?
think that the process suffered as a result. I think
It was
very
it was
good.
a reputable vendor that we used for
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
I like, I'll say that.
Yeah, I went right
So
there.
I,
Yeah, they had their issues.
Mayor, I have one question though, like, so on the actual language on this, I swear after recreational trails, we went back and forth in the language of putting parentheses sidewalks.
That was
Close.
rejected as acceptable language by the Board of Elections and the Secretary of State.
So when did we find out about that? Because I was surprised to find it that I
don't know.
read the mailing, like, did they
I-
notify the city and then we didn't?
I don't know. I don't know exactly when, but they rejected that language.
Okay.
They narrowed it down. Mr.
Did they let you
Byron's
see it
initial
though?
instinct about it was actually correct.
That's, and that is fair. I would just appreciate, like, when a change like that, especially something that we were all so engaged in the conversation about, I really think that we should have been notified in some manner and not just catching it like, oh, where is this on the document? Where did it go?
Yeah,
So,
I was disappointed.
I thought we received an email from
I'm sorry, I
Sheila.
can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I think we received an email from Sheila with the approved language as soon as they approved it.
Yeah, maybe we should just had a red line. for us
yeah,
to
just,
get that.
hey, this was changed, everyone. Ta-da.
Yeah,
Would have been-
okay. So we
We're
sent it
side by
out. So we did
side.
send it out.
Yeah, you
I
did.
remember
Yeah, yeah.
receiving it and saying that this is the official language that the Board of Elections has, I don't know if they drafted it or who drafts it, but
They
we
marked
got
things
that
out.
right after.
They mark things. And when we were discussing that language, I know I said, we can do what we want to do, but this is not to say that the Board of Elections or Secretary of State is going to keep it the way this is being crafted. I
Respectfully, you
remember
did say
saying words. to
that conversation did happen. I just, again, I think information sharing with council is
Okay.
important and. I
Well, that's why,
appreciate
I
it
guess Sheila did
For
send
the
it out.
record.
The Fall Harvest Fest is on September
30th.
30th. If you have not signed up, I know there was a deadline on it. So it may just be passed to attend or not attend. You should still try with
Rachel.
Rachel.
It's passed.
It's
Yeah,
passed?
the 18th.
It's done?
Close.
She put in the final order today.
Okay.
Okay,
Time's up.
so it's done. If you're going, I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
It's always a nice event.
It's a great event. It really is. And there's going to be some great music there that night. Very nice jazz trio is going to be there tonight, or there that night. So it should be very nice. That's about what I have tonight. Council, anything?
I did see East Wind up at the final music in the park.
Right.
They were fantastic, as
Great.
always. It
Great.
is so nice to see a local band and then multi-generations. When Jim Greer brings his grandson up and they play together, it is just such a beautiful
That's
moment
wonderful.
and a wonderful band.
Yeah,
So
people like
please
East
keep
Wind.
them coming back every year.
Fortunately, I was visiting the beautiful Scarlet that night. I was unable to be at that concert.
I have a quick
You get a
question.
pass.
Do you know if the Ursuline project has started yet? I'm not the
Medina
Creative.
Oh, that's a very nice reminder. Thank you. Yes, I went to a groundbreaking. I saw Mr. LeMay there also. Was that this week or in the end of last week?
You know, last week, I think. Yes, yes.
They do run together, don't they? And it was very nice. It was very well attended. It was very appreciated. It was a nice event. And good words were said, and they've broken ground, and they will be proceeding. Still some permitting and grading approvals, things like that to occur, but it is underway. And the families are thrilled and couldn't be more excited. And it was lovely to be able to welcome the new residents of Pepper Pike who will be residing there. So, anything else, council? All right, any audience comments? Mr. Naft?
Manny Naft, 2632 Sound Center. I wanted to congratulate council, on this flyer that went out. A lot of hard work went into it, a lot of time and effort, and definite time deadline, was there, and you guys did a great job on it. One item that I would like to say, this, in addition to this map that was shown in there, gave people a very good idea of what is being talked about and what is being proposed. The one thing that I think is missing a little bit is that Don put together a very nice, and I was trying to make this point at the meeting and wasn't able to get it in the timeframe. What happened is that Don put together an excellent presentation of June 28th, where he showed the different residents that would be affected by this project. And the key item is that residents need to know right now that 48% of what's being talked about in regards to accessibility for walkability to Don's report is already approved by council. Okay, Don shows in this report that 836 residents will be served by Gates Mills Boulevard. Don shows in his last slide on here is that if all 4 walkways are done, 1,728 residents will be served. So the city really needs to get the word out to the folks that really, no matter what happens with this vote, the request of the residents for safer walkability in the city has already been approved by council. In talking with people the last couple of weeks on here, they don't realize that. They think that this whole thing is what's being voted on. They have no clue that we're talking that 48% has already been approved. So the item that really needs to get out to them is that right now the city is going to spend, and it's already been approved, $1.2 million to do 48%. So this balance of the residents on the other 3 streets that's being voted on for $3.7 million roughly, if it doesn't get approved, we still have addressed what people were asking for originally. They came in to the road and infrastructure, committee in regards to looking for an improved walkability in the city. And what's already been approved is 10 feet wide versus what's going to happen with 5 feet wide if we do the sidewalks under a 10-foot wide walkway that's going to allow people to walk in both directions. Okay, so the item is that the city has already done a significant part of this, and they really need to be notified of that during that meeting. So if during the next presentation, you can identify to them, those numbers, again, back to Don's report that was out there, I think that would be a great benefit to the residents. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
All right.
Just that sparked my brain. Can we get an update on maybe the outdoor bathrooms since it's about to be winter and perhaps revamping of the council chambers next agenda? Just something on the agenda for that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Sandeep Modi, 2450 Cedar Lakes Drive. It's more of a question, so if you don't want to answer, I get it. But the topic of the splash pad from several months ago, is that planned to come back on the agenda at any point?
It would not be returning to the agenda until next year when that grant becomes available again. That's a ODNR Nature Grants program that comes up in the spring sometime. I don't know the exact date. Anyone else? All right. Stand adjourned.
Oh, my God.
You sure? Yeah, you want to talk about it for another half hour?
Yeah, let's give it
This mic's on.
another go.